I went to save my brother. Now I'm owned by a gang leader. Trigger warning. This story deals with violence and blood. You're making a mistake, Noah. Detective Benoit's voice was strained. His French accent gave his words a bit of bite, and it was more threatening than charming today. He leaned back in his chair, narrowing his eyes like I was supposed to crack under the pressure. I didn't budge. Maybe I'm not making a mistake, Detective. I really don't know anything about Index. Right. You don't know anything about the gang your brother got mixed up in. The same gang you pulled him out of. Benoit leaned in, eyes fixed on me. Your own brother called the cops on you, yet you expect me to believe you're not involved with them. That's exactly what I'm saying. I don't know anything. His frustration was evident now, but he kept his cool. You're not like them, Noah. You could be somebody here in Toulon. I chuckled. I like being a nobody, Detective. You should try it sometime. It's pretty low maintenance. His nostrils flared. You really think you can keep playing this game? How long do you think you and your little gang will last with the entirety of the Toulon Police Department breathing down your necks? I shrugged again, unable to hide my smile. What gang, Detective? Flashback. 6 months ago. 6 months ago, my life was simple, boring even. But Jeremy just had to shake things up by getting involved with a gang. And by gang, I mean Index. A real deal, don't make eye contact or we'll kill you kind of gang. There I was, thinking I had it all figured out. Work, school, pretending I'm smarter than I actually am, when Jeremy went full throttle into chaos. When I found out he couldn't leave, that's when I decided to step in. I walked into their hideout thinking I could actually make a difference, even though I had no plan. My strategy? Act confident. And if that didn't work, run like hell. I was immediately met with glares from every direction, like I'd walked into a room of people waiting to shove me into a locker. The worst? A bald, tattooed guy giving me the "I'll wreck you and then grab a sandwich" look. He was definitely in charge. I spotted Jeremy, lounging on a couch, reading a magazine like shit wasn't about to hit the fan. I'm here for my brother. Regret hit me the second the words left my mouth, because the looks they gave me, you'd think I insulted their moms. I braced myself for the worst, but then the door snapped open, and I saw him. I froze as he walked through, cutting through like he owned the place, and considering what I was seeing, maybe he did. He was younger than the others, around my age, but way more imposing. His white hair, streaked with what I assumed was blood, gleamed under the lights. Shirtless, with pale skin covered in fresh scratches, his knuckles bruised and coated in dark blood. Yet the most iconic thing about him, aside from his snow-white hair, was the mask that covered half of his face. He looked like he'd just stepped off the set of a horror movie. Those mismatched eyes, one dark, one light, made the room feel way too quiet. He didn't speak, didn't even glance at me as he walked past the chaos. It was like the room bent to him. No one dared break the silence. The noise just died. I felt out of my depth, but I stepped forward. I don't know why. Maybe I was testing fate. Maybe I had a death wish. I placed a hand on his bare shoulder as he passed. Big mistake. I didn't even get the words out before I was choking. His grip was like a vice, almost lifting me off the ground. He didn't say a word, just let me squirm as he stared past me, surveying the room. Finally, the tattooed guy from earlier stepped forward, explaining that I was there to get Jeremy back. The white-haired guy didn't care. He looked bored. Jeremy can leave, he said casually, but you stay. My heart dropped. What the hell are you talking about? His grip tightened again, and for a second, I wondered if those were my last words. It's not up for discussion. Then he let me go. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, relieved I was still breathing. Take your brother and get out, the tattooed guy said, shoving Jeremy toward me. But don't be late tomorrow, or I'll come find you myself. He grinned, showing his grills. Please give me a reason to come find you. And that was it. The room returned to whatever the hell it was doing, and my mind raced. I went from thinking I'd get Jeremy out to being tangled up in some seriously messed up shit. 1 month later, I was officially with them. It felt like living in the worst reality show ever. No cameras, no paycheck, just bruises and bad decisions. My life had spiraled out of control so fast that I couldn't even find my footing anymore. The whole gang thing made my skin crawl. I wasn't some hardened criminal. Hell, I could barely keep my own life together. What would my friends say when they found out I was taking orders from a guy who looked like he stepped out of a graphic novel? Well, his name was Atlas, the leader of Index. The guy who barely spoke, but could turn the air into concrete just by walking into a room. He had me delivering packages to places I didn't want to know about, with no clue what was inside. Just drop them off and leave. He made it clear that curiosity would have consequences. Bad ones. Most of the gang basically worshipped him. You could see them shaking when he walked by. Me, I wasn't scared. Maybe it was because I had nothing to lose, or because I had strangely found myself drawn to the enigma that was Atlas. Either way, I wanted to know what made him tick. So I asked him questions. Mostly, he'd just stare at me like I wasn't even worth his time, but I continued to poke the bear, hoping to get him to say something, anything. 2 months later. 2 months in, and I was getting the hang of the package deliveries. It wasn't fun, but hey, it was better than getting my face kicked in for saying no. At least I wasn't meeting anyone. Just drop-offs at random spots. No interaction with the clients. That part was a relief. Still, not exactly the life I imagined. One day, I roll up to the hideout to grab my usual load. No big deal, right? Wrong. The moment I step inside, I see it. A guy, hanging by his wrists, looking like he'd just been badly beaten. His briefs were the only thing left on him, and standing next to him, completely unbothered and face still masked, was Atlas. His knuckles were raw, and his white hair looked like it'd been through a blender set to murderous rage. "Let this be a lesson to you all. Nobody messes with my packages," he said flatly. I stood there, heart hammering, thinking about how I'd yelled at him days ago over a delivery mishap. Now, I was watching someone else get the lesson I'd been lucky to dodge. I could have been that guy, hanging there, beaten to a pulp. Aldo, the tattooed guy I'd mistaken for the boss, snapped me out of it. "Get your packages. Deliver them. Now." Right. Just another normal day at the office. I shuffled up to Atlas's office, which looked more like his personal space. I couldn't decide if that made him a bad decorator or a minimalist. Atlas was shirtless, wiping blood off his fists like he'd just finished baking a cake. "Hey," I said, trying to sound composed. "I can come back later, right?" Atlas barely looked up, but I could feel his countenance shift just a bit. "No, you're fine." It was like this when it was just us, almost as though he intentionally dialed down his overwhelming aura just for my sake. "What's the deal today? How many packages am I delivering?" "None," he replied, dropping his hands to the table. "I'm doing the deliveries this week, but I could use some help." "Help?" Atlas leaned back in his chair. "It's not an order. It's a request," he said, as though testing the words out himself. I looked at him, and for a split second, it wasn't the unyielding leader of Index that stared back. It was a man my age who genuinely needed help. "Fine," I sighed. "What's the worst that could happen?" The next night, regret hit fast. All I wanted was to get in, get out, and stay alive. But of course, Atlas had other plans. He dragged me into enemy territory to get back packages that the dude he had beaten senseless yesterday had sold to a rival gang. Naturally, I had questions. "Wait, we're going into their turf? You've got an army, why me?" Atlas readjusted his mask before speaking. "It's cleaner this way. Besides, They won't expect you. Yeah, well, they're about to learn I'm not sneaky. I'm more of a trip over my own feet kind of guy. Stay safe, Noah. His words caught me by surprise, and before I could recover, he sped off. Asshole. Surprisingly, his plan worked. I didn't know half of what was going on, but I ran, distracted, and didn't get caught. That was my job. Run for my life and keep them occupied while he retrieved the packages. Atlas picked me up at the agreed location, and I had never been more glad to see the masked man. Seems like you made it out in one piece, he quipped, his eyes smirking. Yeah, let's not do that again. 1 hour later. We made the rest of the deliveries. This time, though, we headed to the slums. The place was nothing like the clean streets of Toulon. Graffiti-tagged walls, broken glass, the kind of place that made you think you were one wrong turn away from trouble. Weirdly enough, I got to see his clients, a bunch of older homeless men, ecstatic to see Atlas. As we left them, it clicked. Wait, these aren't drugs, are they? Atlas kept walking. No, provisions, food, supplies, things people should have access to. I blinked. So you're telling me Index isn't just a criminal empire, you're actually helping people? Atlas stopped, turning slightly. I didn't get into this to exploit people. We look out for the ones everyone else forgets about. I wanted to let fly a flurry of questions, but he beat me to it. Let's get out of here. You look like you're about to pass out. I climbed into the passenger seat, stomach growling. He let out a low whistle. Someone's hungry. I shot him a glare. Dude, I ran at least 2 blocks tonight. He chuckled, a sound that made my chest tighten in a way I wasn't ready to admit. Relax. There's a cafe further down. Aldo swears by it. 10 minutes later. When we arrived at the cafe, I ordered a sandwich, but Atlas didn't bother. Not that it was a surprise. I had a feeling he wasn't the type to sit down and enjoy a meal in public. I chewed slowly, my eyes flicking to him every so often. The silence between us was oddly comfortable, but I couldn't help myself. I had to poke a bit. So, what's the deal with the mask? Atlas gave a small shrug, his eyes never leaving mine. I don't eat here. I rolled my eyes. How does that even answer the question? He didn't flinch. I can't always meet your expectations, Noah, he said, his mismatched eyes locking onto mine like he was daring me to challenge him. I swallowed hard, trying not to let my heart speed up. Changing the subject was my only option. So, those packages, what about them? He replied, his voice low, almost like he was enjoying my struggle. I hesitated, then blurted, I thought you were supposed to be some evil gang leader, slinging drugs, running the streets, and now you're basically a weirdly functional charity? Atlas rolled his eyes. Index is more than what you think. We're not just about power or money. We're here for the people no one else cares about. I blinked, that answer sitting in the back of my mind. I get that now, I think. But where do you even get the supplies? He leaned back slightly, his gaze still intense. We basically run the docks. We have our way of taking what we need. It hit me. So, you're telling me I've been working for a non-profit this whole time? Atlas's smirk widened, and I could feel the heat in my cheeks. You're welcome. I laughed, but it was almost too easy to fall into the rhythm of his teasing. Those eyes of his, they were getting to me more than I was willing to admit. Look, I said, clearing my throat as if I could break the tension. I've got a training camp coming up. Might need to be gone for the entire week. Atlas seemed to think for a moment before sliding his phone across the table to me. You were a major help today. I think you've earned yourself a break. I hesitated, but only for a moment, as I entered my number into his phone. Now come on, let's head home. he added, his tone softening just enough that it made me wonder if I was hearing things, or if maybe, just maybe, he didn't mind the company. 1 week later. I walked back into the hideout, greeted by the usual taunts. Apparently I'd been missed. Too bad for them, I was in no mood for their crap, because despite Atlas taking my number, I didn't get a word from him. "How was your vacation, Noah?" Aldo added, grinning. I flipped him off. "Absolutely fucking amazing, thanks for asking." Aldo didn't even flinch, just laughed like I was a joke. "Is Atlas around?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Aldo's grin faded. "You think you can just walk in and ask about the boss?" He raised an eyebrow like I'd asked to borrow his toothbrush. I shrugged. "I've been gone a week. Someone's got to do the deliveries, right? Where is he?" Aldo's face hardened. "He's out." "When's he back?" "No idea, man. He's been gone 4 days." "And none of you thought to track him down? What if a rival gang grabbed him?" Aldo shot me a look. "What, you're his babysitter now?" "If it means I don't have to wonder if someone's going to ruin my life through him, then yeah, I'll play babysitter." Aldo sighed. "Fine. Let's hit a few of his usual joints." 1 hour later. After about an hour driving through Toulon, I had Aldo drive me to the warehouse Atlas and I raided last week. If Atlas was captured, this is where they'd be holding him. As we rolled past, it looked like there was a gathering for the homeless. I glanced at Aldo. "What the hell's going on?" "No idea, man." We parked and I got out, scanning the place for any sign of Atlas. Then I saw him, sitting at a table, playing poker, with old women. I blinked. "Is this a joke?" "Nope," Aldo muttered. "That's Atlas for you. Strange fucking guy." I stood there, unsure whether to walk away or stay. The women weren't frail, though. These old ladies could give me a run for my money. They moved through the warehouse like they owned the place, hauling boxes like it was a casual Tuesday. Shrugging, I walked in. Atlas barely glanced up from the game. "Hey man, how was training camp?" he asked, raising the bet. "Odd taste in company, you know that?" I said, eyeing the women suspiciously. "They don't complain." He gestured to an empty seat beside him. I sat, mostly out of curiosity. "Seriously, Atlas? Poker?" "Aldo said you've been missing for 4 days." "Figured I could use a break." Atlas shrugged. "I'm not buying it. You don't do breaks." One of the women smiled at me. "He's a charmer, isn't he?" I dryly chuckled. "Far from it, ma'am." Finally, Atlas put his cards down and looked me dead in the eye. I found some stuff I didn't want floating around the neighborhood. I tipped the cops off, and they raided the old gang that ran this place. "Intense," I muttered. "What happens now?" "Now," he said nonchalantly, "we play poker." I stared at him. "You just started a war, and now you're here lounging with the senior citizens?" I quickly turned to the women, offering an awkward smile. "No offense, ladies, you're lovely." "It's quieter this way," Atlas cut in. "If anyone has a problem, they know where to find me." Before I could respond, one of the women slammed the table. "We're upping the stakes, handsome." I raised an eyebrow. "Wait, what?" "Once you sit, you can't leave," Atlas warned. She threw down a new set of cards, then casually added, "Strip poker." My stomach dropped. "You've got to be kidding me." Atlas just shrugged. "Game's a game. You in?" 1 hour later. An hour later, Atlas and I stood there in nothing but our briefs, still trying to process how badly we'd lost. The only silver lining? I finally got to see all of his face. He'd lost the mask a few rounds ago, and honestly, I couldn't look away. He looked so friggin' harmless. The guy was so absurdly handsome, it was almost unfair. Like, how did someone so dangerous manage to look like the poster guy for a boy next door fantasy? I couldn't decide if I wanted to punch him or kiss him. Maybe both. Fortunately, Atlas had some spare clothes in his trunk, and I graciously accepted the hand-me-downs. "You know," Atlas said, tugging on a pair of jeans, "I'm not sure you appreciate how much I've just saved you from tonight." I shot him a look. "Oh, I appreciate you, all right. It's not like you conned me into playing strip poker." He rolled his eyes, shoving me toward the park. "No point bitching about it now. Ice cream's on me." "Wait, what? For real?" I asked, throwing on a hoodie. Atlas nodded, his lips in half a smile. "It's the least I can do." 10 minutes later. We dropped onto the park bench, digging into our cones like kids who just spent the whole day at the playground. "So," I said between bites, "aside from the mismatched eyes and white hair, you're actually pretty normal." Atlas raised an eyebrow, studying me. "I don't know about that, but I'm glad you think so." I shrugged and took another bite. "You've got the whole mystery thing going, but when you're not being the masked enigma or dealing with gang stuff, you're just a guy with a weird haircut." He snorted. "Weird haircut? Really?" I smirked. "Well, you've got to admit, it's a little otherworldly." We sat in silence for a moment, just absorbing the absurdity of it all. Then Atlas grew serious. "I appreciate you for helping with the packages. Sticking around for poker? I didn't expect that." I raised an eyebrow. "For a guy who beats up men twice his size, you're surprisingly nice when it counts." Atlas smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." "You should." I wiped my mouth and leaned back. "But I feel like I deserve something more than ice cream for all that. Like, dinner maybe?" He shrugged. "I've already bought you dinner." I smirked. No, that doesn't count. Dinners usually end with hand-holding and maybe even a kiss." Atlas's gaze lingered on me, softening. I felt my heart race. He didn't speak, just held my stare, the air between us thick with something unspoken. "Is that what you want?" he asked, voice low, almost a whisper. I didn't answer immediately, just nodded slightly, as if there was no other choice. Without breaking eye contact, Atlas leaned in, just enough to close the space between us. His lips brushed mine softly, hesitant at first, as if testing the waters. Then the kiss deepened, just enough to make everything else fade to black. 2 months later. You'd be surprised by how much things can change in just a few weeks. Atlas and I were practically inseparable now. Not a gang leader and lackey, just two guys navigating this mess together. Deliveries, meals, dumb jokes, hell, even hanging out in silence. We were the only ones around the same age in the gang, and it made everything feel different now that I realized how alone he must have been. I learned about Atlas in the last few weeks. He wasn't just some ruthless gang leader. He was an orphan, raised by a homeless guy who started Index. The old man got locked up, and now Atlas ran the show. But he wasn't all power and fear. There was a kindness buried underneath. One night, we were on the roof of the hideout, looking at the city. Atlas lost in thought. Me? I was trying and failing to figure out when I had gotten so comfortable here. Then my phone buzzed. It was my brother. "Get to the house. Now." No explanation, just those words. I didn't even look at Atlas. I bolted. I got to the house as fast as I could. The place was crawling with cops. My stomach dropped. "What the hell is going on?" I asked. But before I knew it, I was in cuffs and led into the back of a car. Present day. And that is pretty much how I got into the whole interrogation mess with Detective Benoit. And after 2 hours of uneventful questioning, he finally let me go after swearing he'd be watching my every move. I made my way home, my mind still buzzing from the interrogation. When I walked through the door, Jeremy was sitting on the couch like he didn't just rat me out. "Did you tell them?" I asked, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. I already knew the answer, but I had to ask anyway. Jeremy sighed. I had to. I didn't know what else to do. I thought I could fix it. I couldn't believe it. You think calling the cops was the way to fix it? I rubbed my eyes, trying to force the frustration back down. Listen, Jeremy, it's not as bad as it sounds. These guys, they're not what you think. The Index? They're not some group of criminals. Not really. They help people. They take care of the ones the world forgets about. Jeremy shook his head. A gang's a gang, Noah. You're in over your head. Weren't you part of the same gang just a few months ago? I retorted. Yeah, but I quickly learned how deep in trouble I was. I want you to do the right thing, no matter how nice they seem to you. His words were the equivalent of a bitch slap to the face. There was no convincing him. Later that night. When I was just about to collapse from exhaustion, I heard a knock at my window. I jolted up, expecting trouble. When I opened it, standing there on the fire escape was none other than Atlas. I froze, surprised and, if I'm being honest, relieved. He was always unexpected, but something about seeing him seemed to comfort me. You all right? Atlas asked, his voice low, like he wasn't sure if I'd snap at him. I'm fine, I replied, though my insides were anything but calm. I didn't tell them anything. He looked at me with that unreadable stare, and I realized how much I'd missed the quiet assurance he carried with him. It's not about that, Noah. It's about the fact that they won't stop coming. The detective's relentless. He's been picking off groups like ours, hoping for promotion. He thinks Index is just another mindless gang gunning for violence. I rubbed my face, feeling the weight of the situation settle in my bones. What does that mean? What do you want me to do? Atlas stepped closer, his face inches from mine. I'm sorry, Noah. I never meant to drag you in this deep, but you're free now. You don't have to be a part of this anymore. I looked at him, the silence stretching between us. So that's it. You're just letting me go. He nodded slowly. I don't want to, but you've got a shot at a different life. Go for it. Get out, forget this. I couldn't breathe. You really want me to leave? I can't do this to you, he said, stepping back. We can't keep seeing each other. You're free from the Index now, and that's all that matters. And with that, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the night like he'd always done. 2 weeks later. I was still sitting in my mess of unresolved thoughts and unmet expectations. The freedom Atlas had so kindly granted me felt more like a leash than anything else. I couldn't go near the hideout, obviously. Detective Benoit had eyes on me. The whole situation felt like being stuck in a cage I had built myself. Yeah, I was technically free, but it didn't feel like it. I had even gotten acceptance letters from the colleges I applied to, but the excitement paled in comparison to the loss I was feeling. I hated myself for it. What was wrong with me? Here I was, officially out of the gang, on my way to college, and I was still thinking about Atlas. What was even worse? I kept calling him, thinking maybe the guy would pick up, but nope, nada, zip. Just a cold echo of my own dumb desperation. One night, as I sat watching TV, there was a breaking news. The Index hideout had been raided. My heart stopped. Panic set in like a tidal wave. I wanted to rush there. I wanted to see if Atlas was okay, if anyone was hurt, if the whole damn place had been turned upside down. But, of course, my brother Jeremy was there to play the voice of reason. You can't go, Noah, he said, his voice softer than usual but firm. You're better off staying the hell away from that mess. I didn't listen, or rather, I pretended not to, but I didn't go. I just let the rest of the night play out like a bad dream. Later that night, I was snapped out of a restless sleep by a knock on my window. My first thought? Atlas. I jumped up, heart pounding, but when I opened it, I found Aldo. Dude, are you okay? My voice came out shaky. Aldo didn't waste time. Atlas needs your help. That made my heart skip. Help with what? He's about to do something stupid. I need you to talk him out of it. Just like that, I was back in it. No longer on the sidelines, pretending I didn't belong to this world. No questions asked, I grabbed my jacket and followed Aldo. The drive was silent, and my mind spiraled with worst-case scenarios. By the time we pulled up to the old homeless shelter, I was a nervous wreck. Inside, Atlas sat there, looking off, exhausted. The usual mask was gone, and for the first time, he looked like a regular person. When he looked up, there was something in his eyes, something heavy. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual, even though I felt anything but. He nodded, but didn't say anything. Aldo left, giving me a look that said, "Good luck." "I'm sorry, Noah," Atlas said quietly. "I got them arrested. I should have known better." I didn't need to ask who them was. I knew. The people who trusted him. They weren't just following a kid with white hair and a mask. They were following a leader. "I'm turning myself in," he said. "What?" I stepped closer. "You don't have to do this." He shook his head. "I don't know how to fix this. I've been keeping them safe, but now I've put them at risk. I thought I could play both sides, but I can't anymore." I saw it in his eyes, the guilt, the weight of it all. He wasn't a cold-blooded gangster, he was human. And sometimes being human meant making mistakes you couldn't undo. "But this isn't the way to fix it," I said, voice tight. "You can't just give up. You're the one holding everything together." He sighed, looking away. "I've already called the detective. Told him I'll turn myself in." "What?" I snapped, stepping back. "No, Atlas, you don't." "It's done," he interrupted, voice firm. "The deal's me for them. I owe them that much." I sighed in defeat. Aldo was right. He was about to do something very stupid. The next day. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I kept seeing Atlas's face, wondering if he was going to go through with it. By morning, the news was all over. The leader of Index had turned himself in, but it wasn't Atlas that was on TV. It was Aldo. Confused and relieved all at once, I sat there trying to piece it together. Why the hell would Aldo pretend to be Atlas? I was snapped out of my thoughts by a knock on my window. It was Atlas, and he was a mess. His mismatched eyes were puffy and stained with tears. "I didn't want this," he whispered, voice shaking. Aldo snuck off and turned himself in, pretending to be me. Yet the detective didn't let the others go. They're still in there, Noah. I wrapped Atlas in a hug as his frame trembled with soft sobs. "I'm so sorry. I didn't want to put this on you. I'm so sorry." "Don't apologize," I shushed him. "I'm here for you." Atlas looked at me like he wasn't sure how to respond, then nodded, quietly accepting. I opened the window, helping him inside. "Stay with me. Lay low for a while we figure this out." 2 weeks later. Things had finally quieted down. Atlas had been lying low, just like I'd asked. I even convinced him to dye his hair black, definitely an upgrade, and had him wear contact lenses to hide those mismatched eyes. It wasn't perfect, but we could go out without drawing attention. The cops weren't actively looking for him, but we still needed to be careful. He wasn't back to his old self. The weight of everything still hung over him, but I could see him trying. One night, after another round of comfortable silence, I handed him my college acceptance letter. "I got in," I said, holding it out like it was some kind of confession. He blinked at it, then at me. "That's good. Great. I'm happy for you." But his voice was off. The smile didn't quite reach his eyes. I scratched my head. "Yeah, I'm supposed to leave for the US soon, but I want you to come with me. Not to college, but to the States. A fresh start. We could leave all this behind." Atlas stared at me like I'd just proposed a trip to Mars. You're serious? His voice was low, as if weighing my words. I mean it, I said, locking eyes with him. You've done enough here. I can't stay, not with everything ahead of me. He ran his fingers along the edge of the letter, crinkling the paper. This town, it's all I've known. Everything I've built is here, the people, the work. I cut him off. You've done enough, Atlas. More than enough. There's more out there for both of us. His eyes held mine, searching for something. You really think I can just leave all this behind? I think it's time, I said, my voice softer. This place isn't the end. There's a whole world out there. He was silent for a beat, then sighed. Maybe you're right. Without saying anything more, Atlas pulled me closer. His gaze lingered for a moment before his hand found my cheek, and then, without a word, his lips met mine, gentle and deliberate. Slowly, almost reluctantly, he nodded. All right, let's go. Conclusion. It finally felt like the world was catching its breath. Atlas visited Aldo one last time before we left Toulon. I wasn't there, but when he came back, he seemed a lot lighter than when he went in. I asked how it went, and he said Aldo had told him to basically move on with his life. The others were older men who knew what they were getting into, but Atlas had his whole life ahead of him. With that, we were gone by the end of the month, packed up and out of France. We found a small place in the United States, not too far from my college, and I actually felt like I had a shot at a normal life. Atlas, on the other hand, proved to be the surprise package. He started taking remedial classes and even volunteered at a community center, helping kids, helping people like he did back in Toulon. For both of us, peace came in the oddest ways, and while Atlas might never forget his past and the people he left behind, we were both at least moving forward. The end. If you were in Atlas's shoes, would you leave? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome.